Ladies and introduce.
Hi, thanks for having me. I spent the last decade studying and researching transformations in the media industries, and mostly studying computer games, because what's else there to do? So I studied computer games, and one of the big changes we're seeing is we're moving from an age of ownership of disks to an age of access to services. But there's one constant, and that constant is hits. Hits have been with us and have stayed with us for a long time. So that leads us to a question. What do Barack Obama, Facebook, and of course, Angry Birds have in common? Well, the first answer is they are all winners. Or as Charlie Sheen would say, winning. I bring up Charlie Sheen because what these examples also have in common is that they all leveraged the power of networks. Charlie Sheen did. He was out and about. I don't know if you noticed that. And then out of the blue, he started to doing this thing on Twitter. And he leveraged the power of networks because within 25 hours and 17 minutes, he gained 1 million followers on Twitter. And he reached the Guinness Book of Records. So there you go. So he leveraged the power of networks. Barack Obama did, right? In 2008, he first ran against Hillary Clinton and won. Not that many people saw that one coming. And then he won against McCain. And now, maybe, let's stay clear from the politics, he might win again in 2012. And he was so successful because of leveraging online technologies. He used web technologies, social media, email, to mobilize people, to attract money, and to communicate his ideas, his platform. Facebook, of course, is a social network. They are almost at 1 billion users. And so Facebook really redefined how we socialize online. You're probably all very familiar with this. And then, who's winning also, of course? Angry Birds. Angry Birds was designed by a small group of developers in Finland. They started in 2008, 2009, developing this really small puzzle game. They spent 100,000 euros on it, 100,000 euros. And a couple of years later, they had 1 billion downloads. And I study video games, but I really should be making them. And what's one of the fascinating things about Angry Birds, not so long ago, I was really lucky and touched Chinese soil for the first time in my life. And I was in Beijing, and I walked alongside a beautiful lake, and there was a lady sitting there, and she was selling these small woolen figurines. And she was old and apparently very poor. And I asked her, why are you selling these cute animals? And I asked via my friend who speaks Chinese, and she said, I saw them online, and they sell like crazy. So Angry Birds also leveraged the power of networks. You can go to China, and you see it. You can go to any Walmart store in the US, and there are over 130 items with the Angry Birds brand on it. Also pajamas. So then there's the question, is this new? No, hits have always been among us. You might have heard of this book. It's about a dude in a ring. I have a cheesy joke. The hit is strong in this one. That's the cheesy joke. I won't tell it. So you have best-selling books, you have blockbuster movies, and you have hit albums. So hits are good, right? That's our reflex. It's a bestseller. It's in the top 10. Hits are good. We love hits. It's what we share. And that made Clay Shirky. He wrote a really good book about this. Here Comes Everybody in 2008. He is an internet theorist. And he wrote, whatever the technology, our social constraint will mean that the famous of the world will always be with us. So you can leverage the power of networks, but hits and fame and stars are also a social thing. We all watch the same thing, and we share hits. We love to talk about it. What has changed, however, is that because of the power of networks, hits become bigger, and they become bigger faster. Why is that? The reason why is because networks, as economists tend to explain, have so-called network effects. Network effects mean that the more people join a network, the more valuable a network becomes. So the more people join Facebook, the more valuable Facebook becomes. Those are called network effects, or positive feedback loops, or bandwagon effects. And those are direct network effects. You have also indirect network effects. When you have a valuable network, and a third party comes along called Zynga, and they make these social games, the network becomes also more valuable, because you don't not only go to Facebook to socialize, but also, like we all love, to play, to compete. A great example of a company leveraging online networks and network effects is Zynga. You might have heard of this game, Cityville. 100 million players in 41 days. Again, I'm in the wrong line of work. Cityville. So this led a couple of economists, Robert Frank and Philip Cook, to write a book, even before the age of networks, about hits. And they said, we live in a winner-takes-all society. And if you read the newspaper today, stated today very clearly, the rich keep getting richer. That has always been the case, and that's more and more being so. But in the age of networks, this is getting bigger and faster. Why is that? Well, there's also this thing called switching cost. And if you look at popular culture, if you look at the people who develop movies and games, they know how to leverage not only the power of networks and these network effects, but they do everything they can to keep you inside their brand and inside their franchise and inside their game. And they do so by raising the switching cost. And switching costs are the cost you have to make from switching from one network to the other. And everybody who is in the Apple ecosystem knows how this works. Once you're in, you're in. Some people argue, like Chris Anderson, you might have heard his name before. He wrote a book, The Long Tail, and he says, the tyranny of the hit is over. We now have this long tail. You not only have hits, who garner a disproportionate amount of attention, but you also have this long tail of niches. We have many, many choices. We can pick whatever we want. Well, the first question is, who buys stuff from the niches? That, in practice, studies reveal it's a really small group of people. It's a really small group of people who actually buy stuff from the niches. We, in general, tend to buy hits and blockbusters. Let me give an example. 1 billion downloads for Angry Birds. They have really wrapped their heads around this trick of keeping people inside the franchise and raising these switching costs. You start with Angry Birds, and then you go to Angry Birds Seasons, of course. Angry Birds Rio, there's also a movie about that. And then Angry Birds Space. So they try everything they can to keep you inside this logic, inside this franchise, inside this brand. And the second example, sort of the king of networks effects, the company who rules them all, is Zynga. Zynga built social games. They went to the NASDAQ. They did an IPO. And they are really masters at leveraging networks effects and raising switching costs. And kings of this winner-takes-all market. So let me explain. You start with, of course, Farmville, right? You start playing Farmville, and you really get pushed, and everybody who uses Facebook knows this. You get this, can you get me spare parts for my pink tractor? So they leverage these network effects to get people from the network inside their Ville franchise. But then, after you can do only so much gardening, you want to move to the city. So they built Cityville, and en masse, the people moved from the farms to the city. And they went to the frontier, and then the frontier got boring. Went to the castle. Went to the Chefville. Petville. Pets are boring. I like fish. Come on, Fishville. Yeoville. So all these millions of people are moving from game to game, but they stay within the Zynga franchise. Zynga has 320 million average users. 320 million average users a month. And that's more than the number 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on Facebook combined. So it's truly a winner-takes-all market. So what do you do after Yeoville and you're out of inspiration? The Ville, of course. And then when you really, really, really run out of inspiration, what do you do then? Yes, Farmville 2. So what to do? Is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Oh, that's up to you. What we've seen in winner-take-all markets is that these big hits get a disproportionate amount of attention. And we all move from franchise to franchise and from brand to brand. And there are two simple things you could do to bring just a little bit more diversity in your media diet. The first thing is to dive into that tail. Dive into the niches. Read a book nobody has ever read before, and that's not recommended to you. Listen to a song or pick up a song nobody has ever recommended to you, or once you hear it. And then secondly, if you hear that song nobody heard, recommend it to a friend, but don't do it online. Do it the old way, the traditional way, old school. Go to somebody and say to him or her, hey, I've heard this hit, or hit incoming. I've heard this beautiful song, saw this beautiful movie, heard this brilliant TED Talk, and listen to it together with me. So let's explore the tail. Thank you very much.